If you are a huge fan of EVE Online or EVE Echoes, then we've got a treat for you. And maybe if you are a huge fan of those or a follower of CCP or even, oh God, NetEase, you know all about Project Awakening. If you don't, and you're just an MMO lover and you're coming to this channel out of the blue, then this is a science fiction MMO. This is not Cooking Mama 4.0. This is basically EVE 2.0. It's building on everything that CCP has done over the last 20 years of EVE Online. It's building on even a little bit of what they learned from EVE Echoes, even though they licensed that to NetEase. And now it's called EVE Frontier. It's no longer Project Awakening. That was just its code name for what the final name would be. And as we know, as of this week, it's EVE Frontier. There was a countdown timer on the projectawakening.io website that ended on Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And I was really watching that timer, waiting to be able to start playing this game this week. Lo and behold, that is not what happened. Instead, what we got was, oh boy, that not loading. Why is that not loading? Because that's the wrong one. Here I am on that. Here I am on this. There we go. I will click that. Instead, what we got was a sign-up page that allowed us to, go and redeem some raffle tickets or whatever, and go like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Basically, hey guys, go market the game for us, and then we'll give you access to the beta test, which is their 4th beta test. That's going to happen on September 27th. Fine, whatever. I got to wait 2 more weeks. That's fine. Still at that point on Thursday, even after doing that, we didn't know anything about the game in terms of what exactly it was going to be, the details of it, right? We knew a lot about it. It's built on the blockchain. For those of you who don't know anything about blockchain or Bitcoin or Ethereum or Dogecoin or Stonks or any of that shit, just take all of that. When you're looking at this game, think about all that stuff and just set it aside for a moment. And let's just focus on what the game actually is, right? And like I said, it's a version of EVE Online. EVE 2.0 is really what it's coming out to be. It's what it seems like it's going to be to me. And to me, from my initial take on it, after reading everything on this website that you see here, everything that's underneath about the Frontier, the Keep, the FAQ, some of the build stuff, all this is the future of MMOs. That's what this game is. This is the future of MMOs. This is how every large-scale MMO is going to be built and designed in the future. Maybe not necessarily off of CCP's Carbon engine, which this is based on, but certainly something around this. And I'm really excited that this could be the first MMO created off of the blockchain that actually works and that succeeds. I'm very hopeful for it. To me, this game just looks fantastic. You can see the visuals here. Obviously, this is all cinematic stuff that they're showing us. None of this is in-game footage. We have very little in-game footage that's been released from the previous 3 playtests. Let's talk about what exactly this game is. I'm just going to do an overview, though, because and break it down over the weeks as we get to, the weeks. It's 2 weeks, the 27th. We've only got like 14 days until it's here. But I'm going to break it down into a couple of different episodes, a couple of different segments here, because I really don't, it's too much. It's too much to kind of sit here and unpack. I'd be talking and just reading things to you for 3 hours. And unless you're a follower of mine over in EVE Echoes, you don't want to do that. Lots of people over on EVE Echoes like to listen to me read patch notes. Not going to happen that way today, although I'm sure as we get patch notes for this, I'll be reading them both on YouTube and on the podcast as well, to keep everybody up to date on what's going on. Because for the first and foremost, this channel will be a quote-unquote talk channel. As we get to where we can stream and record and show some of the inner workings, of course, that'll be here on YouTube. So let's break it down into some simplistic things about what this game is. It is built in a completely different universe than EVE Online. If you don't know anything about EVE Online, if you don't know anything about EVE Echoes, that's fine. You can come into this game fresh and learn everything new. And you're going to have a lot of lore and background that will, make sense to you, because they're making a completely different universe. If you're coming into it from EVE Online and EVE Echoes, and you expect to see Galente, Caldari, and Empire Space, and Nullsec, and all of that, That ain't happening. That's not what's in this game. That doesn't mean the Caldari aren't going to be around in some way, shape, and form, but this universe is a desolate universe. There's 3 major black holes that kind of help structure the map itself. And from what I can tell from reading this, there are what you and I would refer to as NPC stations, but they are not referring to them as NPC stations. Instead, they're going to be ruins or derelict stations that maybe you can interact with. Whether or not you can even dock in them, I don't know. I really remains to be seen. I don't know how any of this works if you don't have a dockable station, though, at the beginning of the game. There's got to be some way to dock and build things at the beginning of the game, unless you build everything while you're sitting in your ship and you're just interacting with the other structures, which is a potential. It's you could potentially have that kind of thing happen here, where you literally have to just go and ferry things over and put them into a container, even though you're in space, and then that structure that's there from the beginning, it's just a leftover ruin from aeons ago, will then spit out something that you can then move and haul and go and anchor somewhere. There's a potential there that you can't dock from the way things read. I doubt it, but it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy with the way some of this reads. It's a survival game. It's definitely an MMO that's a survival game. PvP is going to be everything in this game, as well as PvE. There has to be some mining, and there has to be some building and industry and everything else, because you're starting from scratch. The entire universe is starting from scratch. There's no empire space. There's no Concord. For those of you who don't know what I mean when I say that, I mean that there's no policing faction that keeps you from shooting other players in certain areas, and there's no NPC ships going around to shoot you, right? It's just straight up player and player, and that's it. The entire economy is based off of everything in the player. Again, in the beginning, they're going to have certain things seeded in through the universe somewhere to get people started, but over time, that'll go away. They even say that in some of the background white pages that they show for some of this. Here's a good look at what the mining ships look like. And if you get a sense and a feel for this thing being massive, then you're not wrong, because everything looks massive. Like, this is your ship moving past rocks in space, and your ship is just a tiny dot. Everything is massive. The scale of everything is amped up, even more so than EVE Online. In EVE Echoes, the scale seems really small. Mostly because it's a mobile game, it's on your phone, and this is not a mobile game, by the way. This is a PC-based game or Mac-based game. This is not a mobile game. But the scale of everything is massive. Look at the structure here, right? So this is one of these potential abandoned structures that's in space, although they correlate this to build, and they talk about smart assemblies, and I'll get to that in a minute. But overall, this is... it's very unique. It's kind of a unique take, even though it's building on EVE Online, even though it's building on everything CCP's done with that game for 20 years. It's a very unique take on things. And the part about being built on the blockchain, which is fascinating, is when, I'll give you an example. When it comes to things like these smart assemblies that they talk about here, anything you build is unique. You just built it, and no one else is going to build one exactly like it, although they are. It's kind of a weird dichotomy. Like, if you build a battleship in this game, then you've built the battleship, whatever the name of the battleship is, and everybody else can build that exact same battleship. However, as soon as you've built it, it has a unique ID tag to it. That's part of it being on the blockchain, and that means it's not the same as anybody else's. Now, whether that means you can put your name on it, or somehow it is coded to you, so it does have your character tune's name on it somewhere in the background. It is coded to you, and it stays there forever. And if you sell that to somebody, maybe in the game you can tell who the initial builder of it was forever and ever and ever until it blows up. So that's kind of unique. But you can also add code in the game on top of it to make it do unique things. Change the attribute value of it, make it heavier in certain damage types and less in others, or whatever. It's still an open question as to how far that stretches. But they have said in some of this lore and some of this detail that it's all based on a real physical world and type of setup, right? So there's some underlying structure to where everything has to be done, and you can't go outside of that. But as long as it's inside of that strict physical, digital duplicate of the real world, essentially physics apply, right? And they even break it down and talk about calcium and phosphate and everything else, like real world minerals. Try to make it as realistic as possible. So as long as it stays within the confines of what that is, what that real physical, what that real physical digital world is that they've created, then you can make it do anything. And the same thing goes with structures. So now you can build a structure, anchor it, apply some code to it. Let's go to the build side and I'll show you what I mean. Underneath these smart assemblies. Now you can build the structure, deploy the structure, configure and program the structure and activate it. And now that structure is totally unique and different than anybody else's. And you can make that structure interact with other structures. Everything is composable, meaning that it is meant to interact with everything else in the game. So I don't know how far down they break, how far down the rabbit hole can we go to break down some of these structures and see exactly what that means. Does that mean we have to build, like if we're going to build them, can we build a mining array? I don't know. We don't have a list of buildable components yet. We'll see when this playtest comes out, but do we have to have like multiple structures to build some sort of mining array of some kind, which they do as you break down some of this stuff on the white page. If you really want to go into the weeds like I did and read everything, then on the white page, it even talks about being able to write code to do automation, so that you don't have to manually like go and collecting PI like we do in EVE Online or EVE Echoes. Collecting planetary materials now can be an automated thing, including the transportation of it. So this game is wild. It's blowing my mind. And here's the white paper here. I could even go over here and show you what this white paper looks like. It talks about the digital physics. It gives you a breakdown of the scale of the universe, branching, it goes so far into the weeds. The big thing here, though, that makes this vastly different than anything else I've seen, played, or messed with before is this initial concept of this conservation of energy. Nothing's ever been done like this in an MMO that I'm aware of, but everything in this game decays. You're starting in a universe where things have already decayed beyond the point to where there's really no one around. It's just all of us players that are going to start that kind of repopulate things again. It's like we're kickstarting and rebuilding an entire universe from scratch, but it's left over from aeons and aeons of ruin and decay. And your ship that you're in is going to decay. The mining lasers you start with that you use to mine crude matter, they don't say what kind of crude matter that is. There could be a breakdown of what that is. I don't know. But the stuff you're mining for crude matter is converted into fuel. And if you run out of fuel, you're dead. That's it. You have to have fuel all the time. You have to be replacing those mining lasers all the time because they're going to wear out and die. And if you don't have a backup, then you better hurry up until your fuel runs out. Like, I don't know how that works if it runs in real time in the background, even when you're not logged in. Like that mining laser is going to last 28 days. You've got 28 days of use, or you got 28 days of non-use. But if you're using it, you got like 16 hours, right? Like I don't know how many that breaks down, but I can go through that in my head in terms of when I read this and try to make some assumptions based off of that. When they say it's going to decay, eventually, even your ship you're flying, I don't even know if you could really repair it. The environments they talk about in the universe, each star system is going to have a completely different environment. So I could see a potential of you trying to live in a specific hostile environment to where your ship is getting decayed and you can't repair it. You have to leave the solar system and the star system and come back, or have a base that's anchored there in order to repair it, right? A whole bunch of different things kind of come to mind that make this a very difficult game. I know I've heard one person who has played some of the beta tests so far, and they're under NDA, they can't share anything, but I think what he mentioned it to me was it was like a version of EVE Online on steroids, way harder. And I can't wait. I'm very excited with that, to start this all over again from scratch and play this from the very beginning. This is the Smart Assemblies page. We'll see if this loads up. You can see some of these gorgeous screenshots that they have of stuff in the game. Ship architecture. This is your starting ship that you start with. They kind of give you a little bit of background in that. They talk about there's only two modules you start with, a core module and a central processing unit. So there's a fittings page of some kind with these things. There's power grid requirements. There's joules. It's not gigajoules that we use in Eve as it is now. It's kind of, well, maybe it will be because it's watts, but it's all based off of watts as opposed to like gigawatts or gigajoules. And that tells me that the power consumption is really low and your power generation is really low, and you either have to have a lot of fuel to generate a lot of power, or you just have to, like I said, keep mining this crude matter in order to create fuel. Now, maybe that won't be as difficult as what they make this sound, but they even highlight some of this or make this or get this back into a thing where they talk a little bit about it. The way that they wanted to get around the botting and the RMT stuff that happens in a lot of MMOs was this fuel concept, and that this fuel concept was going to negate some of that, which I find just fascinating, just absolutely fascinating. The quest for fuel. There's even a breakdown for all this right here. And they talk about what currency is in game. There's an EVE token, because again, it's blockchain based, and there's Lux, Lux. It's not, there's no ISK. They even say that right here. There is no ISK. There's Lux. It's a fungible virtual currency. But you can make your own virtual currency in this game and then use it with your wallet and use that wallet offline via an extension on your Chrome browser. And I say Chrome browser because who's using anything other than Chrome? That's just ridiculous. Get good, noob. But no, so all of these things are interactable back to the real world because, again, it's token based. That's what the blockchain, cryptocurrency, whatever else part of it comes in. Not just the individual IDs where everything's unique and exists in the blockchain, but also from the standpoint that it's all transferable, both from digital to real currency. So, I mean, going through some of this, when they talk about some of the smart assemblies, I can envision, like they talk about, I don't know where it's at, but they talk specifically about making a container, and you can anchor that container in space, and you can code that container to hand out missions, to hand out objects, ships, or even currency. Now, what if you could hack that container or blow the container up and steal everything inside, including the currency that's inside? And it doesn't matter what that currency is, if it's Lux or if it's tokens, as long as you can convert Lux over to tokens, maybe you won't. Maybe that's the new ARM, right? Tokens is, and so it can't convert. It can convert to Lux, but it can't convert back to tokens. I don't know. But still, I mean, you could transfer money around, right? So you can literally steal someone's actual physical money, whether that's the virtual currency or the real currency of tokens. I find that fascinating. And maybe you have to haul that around because there's no Concord. There's no, like, the contracts are a little different. They call those smart contracts as well. There's a tax that goes into those, but I don't know who collects that tax. So there's some holes right now that haven't been filled in by some of this story, some of this lore that they've put out. If you come over here and look at the Keep, this is kind of the stories that they have so far with all of this, and these are excellent reads. It is dark as fuck. I tell you that right now. There's one of these kind of describing a world where all the human bodies were smothered by the constant building of a runaway AI, building ships after drones after drones after drones, built so many that it literally overran and smashed people and killed them. And their bodies are still there underneath piles of writhing drones that you can see from the surface. Like, that's just dark as shit. But interesting as all get out. And that's where they talk about in here on the fabricators, they talk about, it's another story, basically. Each one of these is like a little mini story. Very well done, where they talk about someone coming across a derelict station, but they could interact with it and get things from it. Or at least that was the concept that I got from reading that one. And there's the reference to the Keeper and the crude matter. So you're going to want to go through, if you're really interested in this game at all, or even if you're just passively interested, I'd come over here to evefrontier and read all of this stuff on the Keep, because just that alone is kind of a neat story, just all by itself. It was very fun to go through and read these. They're short, easy to get through, a lot of fun, but very hopeful for this game. It's not going to stop me from playing Eve Echoes. That's my major game that I'm playing as Taylor Rick. But definitely going to be playing this game as Taylor Rick as well, evefrontier, and hope that some of those on EVE Online who are poo-pooing it because of the blockchain and crypto bro stuff kind of get over it and give it a shake for what it is, because it's very fascinating. It's very, very fascinating. I can't wait to play. That's all I got for today. I'm going to come back with some more breakdowns of individual scenarios, individual things, or individual items anyway, and how they work in the game. And we'll go over that in the next 2 weeks. It's going to happen really fast. We've got 2 weeks till the playtest comes around, and I'll break things down inside of that playtest, including recording some of what's happening in the game, so you can actually see the real gameplay and how it works, how this fuel works, how all this works. Because other than what I just went through right there and what you can read on the website, nobody really knows. Even some of the play testers that have done the first 1, 2, and 3 betas that were closed and they were under NDA, I would imagine that some things are going to change between each one of those, just like it does with any other beta. No 2 betas are exactly the same. Things change, things get improved, things get added. And I'm sure all of this stuff as it's been laid out is news to those playtesters as well. So it's fascinating. That's evefrontier. I look forward to playing with it, hopefully with all of you. I look forward to building a little bit of a community here too as we do it. They have corporations and alliances inside of evefrontier, but they're called tribes and something else. I forget what tribes are like corporations, and I forget what they call the alliances. So I'm sure to start up a tribe. Should be a lot of fun. And we'll see you in 2 weeks inside of evefrontier.